The story begins with a woman named Ebony, who, after a conflict with her husband, relocates to a new house with her mother and 3 children. The altercation with her husband leads to her raising her children alone. Ebony's mother, battling cancer, remains alive due to her strong faith in God, and she visits the church daily to pray. However, Ebony isn't religious like her mother, and neither are her sons, so they avoid going to church. Only her daughter, who shares her grandmother's faith, attends church with her. Since the argument with her husband, Ebony has become increasingly disturbed and resorts to drinking heavily, while being strict and distant with her children. Her penny-pinching ways cause her children to dislike her, and her relationship with her mother is strained. One day, during a meal, Andrew, her younger son, asks for milk, but Ebony refuses, claiming the doctor advised against it due to his milk allergy. Andrew protests, accusing her of being miserly. Ebony, angered by this, slaps him hard, causing him to bleed from his mouth. Apologizing, she cleans his wound, but the tension continues to rise. That evening, Ebony's daughter complains to her father, expressing concern about her mother's behavior. She mentions that Ebony has resumed drinking and treating them badly, even resorting to physical discipline. As she speaks, a strange smell fills the air. Meanwhile, Ebony, in the midst of her chores, is disturbed by flies buzzing around her, all coming from the basement. When she opens the basement door, a foul odor wafts out. Pushing the flies away with her clothes, she closes the door and walks off, unsettled. At 3 a.m., Andrew wakes up hungry and drinks some milk. Suddenly, he hears a loud noise at the window and is startled to find a dead crow lying outside, having hit the window. The next day, while walking home from school, Andrew and his older brother are harassed by some boys. One throws a stone, injuring Andrew's head. Despite the attack, they walk away without retaliation. Back home, Ebony finds a liquor bottle hidden in her older son's cupboard and confronts him. She questions him about drinking, but he denies it, claiming he kept the bottle hidden to prevent her from drinking. Later, she asks her daughter how her son's head got injured. Upon learning that a street boy was responsible, Ebony angrily goes to confront him. She beats the boy severely and warns him to stay away from her children. As Ebony sits down, the flies return, this time coming from the basement again. Meanwhile, she notices Andrew talking to someone. When asked, he claims he's talking to his friend Trey. Ebony is taken aback, feeling that something is off, but dismisses it as her son perhaps having an imaginary friend. One night, Andrew ventures into the basement, and once again, Ebony starts hearing strange noises. When she goes downstairs to investigate, she notices that the basement door is open, likely left ajar by Andrew. She closes it and returns to bed. The following day, when Ebony's mother goes to the hospital for a checkup, she learns that the insurance company isn't covering her treatment. Instead, she discovers that Ebony has been secretly taking the money intended for her care. This revelation helps her understand why Ebony has become so tight-fisted. That evening, Ebony's son observes that she's drunk excessively again, which makes him feel disheartened. When Ebony arrives, her mother, overwhelmed with mixed emotions, tells her, "I found out you're using the money for my treatment." "I don't know how to thank you." Ebony dismissively replies, "You don't need to say anything, Mom. It's my responsibility," before heading off to sleep. Later, Ebony has a terrifying nightmare where she dreams a man enters her room. She jolts awake in fear and sees the door suddenly slam shut as if someone had just exited. Believing a thief has broken into the house, Ebony grabs a bat and cautiously checks downstairs, but finds no one. She then notices the basement door is once again open, and a stronger, more nauseating odor is emanating from it. The stench makes Ebony gag, and she begins to vomit. Just then, her older son approaches from behind, accusing her, "When you checked my cupboard, why did you take my money?" Ebony demands to know where he got so much money, and he reveals, "Dad is sending it. I'm saving it to leave because I can't live with you anymore." He asks for his money back, which infuriates Ebony. She slaps him, but he retaliates, shoving her and causing her to fall. This sends Ebony into a frenzy. Raging, she tries to get up to strike him back, but Andrew rushes to help his brother. However, in the chaos, Andrew crashes into something and tumbles down. Her older son, filled with sarcasm, sneers, "Wow, Mom. You're really doing a great job as a mother. You deserve an award for the best one." He storms off in anger. After a brief moment of reflection, Ebony, desperate to hold on to her family, quietly returns his money, pleading with him, "Please don't leave me. I'm trying to change. I want to live with you and love you." After being tormented by the flies and the awful stench, Ebony decides to call pest control to check the basement. The workers find a dead cat, but they demand a large sum of money to remove it. Ebony doesn't have enough money to pay them, so she refuses. However, her older son arrives and hands the workers the money to remove the cat. The next day, a social worker visits to evaluate Ebony's living situation with her children, checking on whether they're living in proper conditions. Ebony's daughter had previously confided in her father about the situation at home, leading him to file a case, stating that Ebony was unfit to have custody of the children due to her drinking and abusive behavior. The social worker, who came to investigate, noticed marks on her son's arm and also saw that Andrew had an injury. When the worker asked the children about it, they avoided the topic and refused to say anything. The social worker could tell that they were hiding something and suspected that Ebony had been the one to harm them. She warned Ebony about the situation before leaving. As they left, the social worker and the children noticed another woman watching them from a distance. They dismissed her, thinking she was just another person connected to the case. The next day was Ebony's daughter's birthday, and to make up for her past actions, Ebony threw a birthday party for her. She gave her daughter the expensive phone she had been wanting for a long time. Her daughter, overjoyed, hugged Ebony, grateful for the gift. However, during the party, Ebony heard strange thumping noises coming from the basement. When she went to check, she found Andrew standing there, banging his head against the door, behaving oddly. Surprised, Ebony asked him what he was doing, as she had put him to bed upstairs. Andrew replied that he had come to visit his friend Trey, who supposedly lived in a hole in the basement. Ebony found this deeply unsettling. Upon closer inspection, Ebony noticed that Andrew had a high fever. Concerned, she took him back upstairs and put him to bed. However, after the party ended, Ebony noticed Andrew standing downstairs again. This was the third time he had gotten out of bed. Exhausted, Ebony sent him back upstairs to sleep and went to bed herself. But at midnight, strange thumping noises echoed throughout the house. This time, everyone heard the sounds. Ebony, frustrated, yelled at the children to stop making noise and go to sleep. But when the noises persisted, she stormed into their room to check. The sounds of children screaming filled the air. Ebony's mother rushed in and saw the children huddled in fear against the wall, while Ebony sat in front of them in an odd and unsettling state. Her mother was horrified by the scene. She asked the children what was happening, and they explained that their mother had been throwing them against the wall. Ebony, in tears, denied everything, crying out, "No, Mom, I didn't do that." The next day, things took a bizarre turn as all three of Ebony's children began acting strangely at school. Andrew's behavior was particularly alarming. During class, he suddenly defecated on the floor and, to everyone's horror, began eating it. When his teacher tried to stop him, he threw it at her in defiance. Meanwhile, his sister approached her teacher and explained that she was bleeding, seemingly dealing with a female health issue. Ebony's older son, during a lecture, suddenly started laughing uncontrollably. His teacher attempted to intervene, but the laughter only grew louder and he sat on the ground, laughing even harder. Concerned about the children's unusual behavior, they were taken to the hospital for tests. During Andrew's brain scan, when shown a picture of a crow, he called it Trey, the name of his imaginary friend. After examining all three children, the doctor informed Ebony that the reports were normal and the children appeared to be in good health. Unsatisfied with this explanation, Ebony argued with the doctor, insisting that Andrew's actions, like eating his own waste, were not normal and demanded a second round of tests. The doctor, frustrated, questioned Ebony about the injury marks on the children's bodies and asked how they had gotten there. Ebony didn't answer and left the office in silence. Outside, Ebony's mother approached her and said, "You are arguing with the doctor for no reason. The reports are fine, and the children are healthy. But from what I see, something else is happening here, something paranormal. I believe there's an evil spirit in the house causing all of this." That evening, Ebony's mother hung a cross on the wall of their home. Ebony scoffed at the gesture, dismissing it as nonsense. "None of this is real," she said. But soon after, while bathing Andrew, Ebony witnessed her older son holding Andrew down in the tub, attempting to drown him. Shocked and terrified, Ebony rushed to pull her son off, using all her strength to free Andrew and save his life. Ebony's mother arrived just in time to see her grandson crying in her arms. The older son, trembling, confessed, "I don't know why I did that. It felt like someone else was controlling me." Disturbed by the recent strange and terrifying events, Ebony decided not to send the children to school for a few days, worried about what was happening to them. The following day, the social worker, aware of the situation, came to visit the children. However, Ebony refused to let her meet them, insisting that very strange things were happening in the house. Her mother, growing increasingly agitated, grabbed a bat and forcefully pushed the social worker out of their home. Just as they were dealing with this, the mysterious woman appeared once again, taking photos of them from a distance. Ebony's mother angrily confronted her and chased her away as well. In desperation, Ebony's mother went to the church, seeking help for what she believed was an evil spirit haunting their home. However, the church officials refused to assist, telling her that they couldn't help with such matters and advised her to seek help elsewhere. Later, the same unknown woman, whom Ebony initially thought to be associated with the social worker, arrived at her house. The woman introduced herself as a priest, claiming that she had been sent by God to help Ebony because her house was haunted. She explained that strange occurrences had been happening because an evil spirit had taken residence there. The woman then told Ebony the history of the house, showing her a picture of a family that had lived there 20 years ago. According to the woman, the family's younger son had exhibited similar behaviors to Andrew's, strange actions and disturbances. Despite seeking all kinds of treatments, nothing helped the boy, and the family eventually turned to the priest for assistance. She clarified that while she wasn't an exorcist, she had performed a ritual called deliverance on the boy. Unlike an exorcism, which involves calling out the spirit, deliverance uses holy items like water to push the evil spirit away. Sadly, the priest's attempt had failed, and the boy had died. Even after his death, the haunting continued. The tragic story didn't end there. The boy's mother, driven by madness, killed her husband in his sleep, chopping off his head with an axe. She then murdered her daughter before ending her own life. Ebony was shocked and asked the priest the name of the boy. The priest revealed that his name was Trey. Ebony froze in disbelief. Andrew had been talking about an imaginary friend named Trey, which immediately connected her son's behavior to the horrifying history of the house. The priest warned her that Trey was no friend, but a demon who deceives children by appearing as a friendly figure. He explained that if Andrew continued interacting with Trey, he would be taken by the evil spirit. Angered by the priest's words and unwilling to believe in such supernatural claims, Ebony dismissed the priest, telling her she didn't believe in Satan or anything related to it. She scolded the priest and began to leave, but not before the priest insisted she take his address, saying, "You will need it. You'll come to me for help." Meanwhile, back at the house, Ebony's mother heard a demonic voice calling her name. Terrified, she hurried to get the holy book, but when she returned, she was attacked by the spirits in the house. The demons overwhelmed her, killing her in the process. When Ebony came home, she found the cross on the wall burning, smoke filling the house. Panicked, she rushed to extinguish the fire, only to discover her mother's lifeless body. Stricken with fear and grief, she began to cry uncontrollably. At that moment, Andrew appeared at the top of the stairs, staring down at her, adding to the overwhelming sense of dread that had taken hold of the house. Ebony hears her two children screaming, which sends her into a panic. She immediately grabs them, trying to escape the house. As they drive away, Andrew's behavior shifts dramatically. He turns to her, coldly telling her that she is responsible for her mother's death, and in a horrifying moment, his eyes turn completely black. Terrified, Ebony is momentarily distracted by his unsettling words and gaze, taking her attention off the road. She doesn't see the truck speeding toward them, but just before it collides with them, she regains control of the car, steering it away and bringing it to a halt. Shaken, she pulls into a nearby hotel, desperate for help. Crying, she begs for someone to intervene, claiming that someone is going to kill her children. But when people check on the children, everything appears normal, with the kids sitting quietly. Frustrated and now angry, they accuse Ebony of being insane. Following this, Ebony undergoes a series of psychological tests. The doctor asks if she still drinks alcohol, and although Ebony lies, the results of the test reveal the truth: she has been drinking. As a result, the custody of her children is taken away and granted to the church. Unable to stop them, Ebony watches helplessly as her children are taken away from her, tears streaming down her face. Defeated and desperate, she turns to the priest, seeking his help. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the social worker visits Andrew, whose condition has worsened. The nurse informs her that Andrew is acting increasingly strange, making bizarre sounds, and even speaking in a language that is not his own. The priest, upon hearing of the events, reveals to Ebony that her home is teeming with demons. He explains that one of them has taken control of Andrew, using him as a vessel to manipulate and control her other 2 children. These demons prey on vulnerable people like her, but he promises to help her regain strength and faith. The priest teaches Ebony how to pray and strengthen her belief in God. At the hospital, when the social worker tries to speak with Andrew, he responds in a terrifying, otherworldly voice, claiming that he is not Andrew. When she presses him further, the demon inside Andrew demands that she unbuckle his restraints before revealing its identity. Refusing, the social worker watches in horror as Andrew breaks free from his bindings, leaping from the bed and scaling the walls with unnerving agility. Terrified, she runs to inform the doctor, but her warnings are dismissed. In the meantime, Ebony, disguised as a nurse, sneaks into the hospital to take Andrew. She cleverly helps him escape, where the priest is waiting outside in a car. They head back to the haunted house, where the priest prepares to perform a deliverance ritual. He warns Ebony that during the process, the demon will try to deceive and trick them, potentially taking the form of any of their family members. Ebony must remain cautious and focused. As the priest begins the deliverance, he pours holy water on Andrew, causing the demon inside to writhe in pain. In a shocking moment, the demon transforms into the form of Ebony's mother, taunting and mocking them. But the priest remains resolute, continuing with the ritual. Suddenly, the demon breaks free, laughing maniacally, and the atmosphere becomes even more tense. Meanwhile, in the church, a terrifying turn of events unfolds. Ebony's daughter, still in the church, starts bleeding from her eyes and mouth. The sinister presence within the house is clearly spreading, and the struggle to save her children is far from over. At the same time, Ebony's brother begins to transform, his hands turning demonic with large, sharp nails. In a horrific moment, he starts scratching his own chest with them. The priest, sensing the increasing danger, sends Ebony upstairs to keep her safe while he faces the demon alone. However, the demon cunningly takes the form of Andrew and vanishes before the priest can react. In an instant, the demon grabs the priest by the throat, hurling him against the wall with brutal force. It drags him by his hair, tossing him through the air and repeatedly slamming him down onto the ground. Ebony, hearing the chaos, rushes downstairs, only to find the priest lying unconscious and gravely injured. Andrew, now laughing eerily, sits near him before vanishing once again. Ebony rushes to the priest, desperately checking for signs of life. As he weakly hands her the holy water, he tells her she has failed and that now she must finish the task. With those final words, the priest succumbs to his injuries, leaving Ebony alone with the burden. Determined, Ebony begins searching for Andrew. She finds herself in the basement but is unable to locate him. Just as she's about to give up, Andrew suddenly appears in front of her. Without hesitation, Ebony pours the holy water on him, causing the demon to writhe in pain. Furious, the demon attacks, dragging her by the hair and morphing into Ebony's form, trying to strangle her. But the demon doesn't kill her outright. Instead, it tortures her, weakening her emotionally and physically. As Ebony nears her breaking point, the demon prepares to finish her off by strangling her with his foot. In the final moments before her death, Ebony sees a vision of her mother, who guides her to speak with God. In this moment of spiritual clarity, Ebony finds strength and courage, and all the evil within her fades away. She feels empowered, her faith in God giving her the strength to fight back. Summoning all her willpower, she delivers the final blow to the demon, using the holy water to burn it from the inside. The demon is consumed by flames and reduced to ashes, vanishing completely. With the demon defeated, everything begins to return to normal. Ebony's daughter, who had been floating in the air in the church, gently floats back down to her bed, now fully recovered. Ebony's son, who had been eating his own waste, stops and returns to his normal self. The demon is banished back into the hellish abyss from where it came, and peace is restored. 6 months later, Ebony is reunited with her children, having regained custody of them. The family is finally at peace, living in happiness and harmony. Ebony has not only recovered but has also given up drinking. The family moves away from the haunted house and the cursed city, starting fresh. Ebony and her husband reconcile, and they begin their new life together, committed to living as a loving, united family. The once tormented family now enjoys a hopeful and peaceful future, marking a happy and healing conclusion to their journey. With this, the movie ends. If you liked this video, then do not forget to subscribe to the channel after liking the video.